You know, when the financial system gets a little clogged up, sometimes a gentle nudge is all it takes. But other times, well, other times you need a bazooka. And today, we are diving into a massive, and I mean massive, move by India's central bank, a 3 trillion rupee cash injection. It was designed to get money flowing again, and we're going to unpack exactly what that means, why it even had to happen, and what it signals for the future. It's a pretty powerful term, isn't it? A liquidity bazooka? So what on earth is it? Well, putting it simply, it's a huge, decisive cash injection by a central bank. The goal is to get a ton of money into the financial system and to do it fast. But, to really wrap our heads around it, we've got to look at the problem it was meant to fix in the first place. And that brings us right here. Let's set the scene and take a look at the financial system before this big intervention. Because let me tell you, things were getting tight and the pressure was seriously building. Okay, so here's the bottom line. The whole system was just running low on cash. I want you to think of it like the economy's plumbing. For everything to work right, money has to flow freely between banks so they can lend to businesses, to people like us, and even just cover their own daily needs. But that flow, it was starting to get blocked. And there's a name for this, of course: system liquidity. It's not just jargon, it is literally the lifeblood of the banking sector. When liquidity is high, money is cheap, it's easy to get. But when it's low, the entire system, the whole economy, really starts to feel that squeeze. And this is where the rubber meets the road. When cash is scarce, it just becomes more expensive for anyone to borrow money. In the financial world, we see this show up as rising bond yields. Now, a higher yield basically just means a higher cost of borrowing for everyone. We're talking the government, huge corporations, you name it. And that can really slow down the entire economy. So with all this pressure mounting, the central bank decided it was time to do something decisive. They didn't just turn on a little tap. Oh no, they threw open the floodgates. And this, my friends, is where our bazooka comes into play. And here it is, the headline number: 3 trillion rupees. Just to put that in perspective, that is a 3 followed by 12 zeros. This is the staggering amount of fresh cash the central bank planned to pump into the system in just 30 days. It's the kind of number that is absolutely designed to make everyone sit up and pay attention. So how in the world do you inject that much money into an economy? Well, the plan had 2 main parts. First, the central bank went out and bought government bonds directly from other banks. This is a classic move, and it puts cash straight into their accounts. And second, they used a pretty clever foreign currency swap, basically trading dollars for rupees to give that domestic cash supply an extra boost. Now, this wasn't just some chaotic, single cash dump. No way. It was a very carefully planned operation. The 2 trillion in bond purchases, which by the way is known as open market operations or OMO, were scheduled in 4 separate waves. This sent a really clear signal to the market that the central bank was committed and that this was a sustained, deliberate effort to bring back stability. All right, so you pull out a financial bazooka that big, what happens next? An action of this size is bound to have some pretty immediate effects. So let's move on and see exactly how the markets reacted right after the announcement was made. The change was, well, it was almost instant. Before the announcement, those borrowing costs, the bond yields we talked about, were just climbing and climbing. Afterwards, boom, they immediately fell by 7 to 10 basis points. Now, a basis point is just 0.01%, but trust me, in the bond market, that is a significant move. And maybe even more importantly, all that uncertainty started to melt away, replaced by a real feeling of renewed confidence. And the impact wasn't just on bonds. The national currency also adjusted, and in a really helpful way. It settled at a level that helps make the country's exports more competitive on the world stage, while at the same time making non-essential imports a bit less attractive. And because the central bank has a huge stockpile of foreign reserves, they could make sure this whole adjustment happens smoothly without sparking inflation or causing any major instability. Okay, so the immediate fire has been put out. The bazooka did its job. But what does the future hold? That's the real question, isn't it? So let's take a look at the key factors that are probably going to shape the bond market from here on out. So the analysis points to 4 big things we all need to be watching. First, any kind of new international trade deal could really ease pressure on the currency. Second, and this is a big one, getting Indian bonds included in a major global index would be a total game changer, attracting billions in foreign investment. And of course, everyone will be keeping a close eye on the central bank's next interest rate moves and whether the government can maintain its own fiscal discipline. This quote from the source analysis really just sums up the optimistic outlook perfectly. What it's basically saying is, hey, even though borrowing costs have been high, the actual underlying conditions are getting so much better. It's suggesting the market just hadn't quite caught up to that new, more positive reality yet, which means there's still room for improvement. And all of this leaves us with the big final question. Firing the liquidity bazooka clearly worked in the short term, no doubt about it. It calmed a lot of nerves and brought costs down. But is this a permanent fix, or is it more of a temporary patch? Well, the answer is going to depend on those four factors we just looked at, leaving all of us to watch very closely to see what happens next.